Well, hello and welcome back to Read Becca. It's once again time for a to be read list, or it's sort of time. I'm filming rather early as I will be on the road traveling. So it's time for you for my to be read list. And we're looking forward to November. I cannot believe we're already to the end of the year. But as we're looking toward the end of the year, I'm thinking about all the things I wanted to get done by the end of the year and have not. So my first sort of bucket within my TBR is what I'm calling no carryover November. It's just something I completely made up. It's not a readathon, but it's the fact that I have a number of books, a few books that I've started and not finished, and I do not want to carry these over into 2026. So I have 3 books. The first, Middlemarch, I started in March, and it has continued on. And I kind of understand now why I always see people reading this over a long period of time. It is long, but it's not that long. However, it does very much lend itself to picking up and putting down intermittently very easily. So I have done that over the year and just paused it for months at a time. And I really want to continue on, progress, and finish up Middlemarch this year. The next I started and just sort of set aside and haven't gotten back to is Letters from My Weird Sisters on Autism and Feminism by Joanne Limburg. So these are kind of essays, not quite letters, that the author is writing after a somewhat late in life autism diagnosis as a woman, writing to famous, meaningful women that were not necessarily autistic, but were outcasts, sort of social outsiders, weird people. So I started it and then just kind of never got back to it. So it has been literally sitting on my stack of currently reading for months, and I need to get back to it. And then lastly, House of Leaves by Mark Zidane-Lewski, a spooky book I started for Halloween, and I definitely do not want this to carry over into the next year. I want to finish it, and it's one of those mountains to climb for sure, because it's been on my TBRs forever. So those are individual books that are definite priorities. I also have things that I'm lumping into this mentally to do with yearly goals and like series I wanted to tackle. So those are things that are more nebulous. But the first of the rest of the TBR, I guess, kind of fits in that category, though, because it's a buddy read, but it's Love Medicine by Louise Erdrich. And Erdrich was an author who is constantly recommended to me, but I've never read before, and that was one of my goals. So I had a different book flagged on my current year TBR for that, but I'm changing over to this one because somebody wanted to buddy read it. So I am definitely getting to this in November, as I will be buddy reading it at the beginning of the month. And then we get into the events. So events, I only have 2 events that I'm trying to participate in this month. And I do feel like, though it's not quite November yet, so I haven't seen all of the spam of people announcing all their events yet. I know there are a lot coming up, and I feel like I've lost touch in the past few weeks. But the one I'm most excited about is a new event this year called Dinovember. And I will link down below one of the announcement posts if you want to check that out. But obviously it's to do with reading about dinosaurs. So the first book I have for that is a nonfiction book, My Beloved Brontosaurus, On the Road with Old Bones, New Science, and Our Favorite Dinosaurs by Brian Switek. And I'm pretty sure Switek is a citizen archaeologist, not a professional, if I recall. And this is not super long, but he's very well regarded. I could be mixing him up with somebody else, but I'm pretty sure I remember that being the case. However, I think this is a very respected book, a well-loved book, and I'm really, really interested in the topic. The other is a fiction selection for Dinovember, and that is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, which I have somehow never read. I'm a massive dino lover, and I've seen and loved the movies, but I've never read the book. So I have this lovely, like, Barnes & Noble, I think, edition of the first 2. It's Jurassic Park and The Lost World, and yeah, I need to read it. I think everybody knows what this is. It's a park run amok, so it's kind of horror sci-fi mix, which is a great vibe for me right now. So I think I'm gonna love this. And that is my selections for Dinovember. Next, and finally, we have an event that is not an event. It's an event we all know and love, Nonfiction November, that is not actually happening this year because Olive opted to end last year after 10 successful years. And I think now it's ingrained in BookTube. So we will all just gravitate toward nonfiction in November. And I have been really avoiding nonfiction the past couple months. We're not avoiding, I've read some nonfiction, but Specifically, I'm really drawn toward a lot of political and religious nonfiction, which is exceptionally hard right now. And a number of new things have been coming out that are really grasping my attention and not turning to those. So those are increasingly appealing to me, definitely. But I was looking at my to-be-read shelf for the year and thinking about the fact that I have multiple books on there that have been there for more than 1 year. Like, I think the ones I selected have been like 3+ years on the politics side of things. So I'm feeling like mentally and emotionally, I'm ready to dive back into that space in nonfiction. And so that is where I'm going so that I can line up some room for those new releases that are grabbing my eye. So the first is Susan Jacoby, The Age of American Unreason. She's also the author of Freethinkers, which I also have not read. But this, I think, is going to be really fantastic criticism on American politics and the current state of America. As I said, it's a few years old now, so it will be interesting to see how this has aged. The next one is kind of similar, same topic, but I think maybe more punchy and humorous perhaps. Idiot America, How Stupidity Became a Virtue in the Land of the Free by Charles P. Pierce. And this one, I don't know how this is going to have aged because this is multiple years old, certainly pre-2016, definitely. And it sounds like my sort of thing in terms of what it's doing, but if it is overly humorous, overly unkind on the topic, I think I may not make it very far. But I have had this on my shelf and been wanting to read it for multiple years, so hopefully I will at least figure that out as a result of this, because I don't want it to continue to just sit there and become more and more and more dated. But it does seem like it's likely to be very timely, and perhaps a message from the past. The next is not criticism, but much more hopeful. So rounding out my TBR, I have some hope. I have Utopia for Realists, How We Can Build the Ideal World by Rutger Bregman. This one, I'm hopeful. I've heard kind of mixed things somewhat, but I think the criticisms are perhaps fair, but not necessarily a problem for me personally. However, I do need some hope on actual solutions. I think if this one in particular is just poking at people and not presenting solutions, I will not be very happy with it. This one I know is full of solutions and is primarily about solutions. So that's what I need to round out my month, I believe. So with that, and actually Bregman, I think, does have a newer book very recently out, like within the last year, that I would like to get to as well. So with that is the TBR for November that I'm thinking of currently. As I said, I have in mind more things that I'm not wanting to carry over or were part of my goals that I want to be getting to as I'm winding down toward the end of the year. But I think this is probably sufficient. So for my TBR, this is what we will attempt to get to. So let me know what you are looking forward to reading, which of these you most want me to get back to you on and discuss here. And tell me, are you participating in Dinovember and what you're reading there? Because I'm really excited about that as a new event. I'm very hopeful to see everyone's dino books because I'm obsessed with dinos as well. So that, I think, is all for my TBR for November. And with that, I will say thank you so very much for watching.